Hello, today we are going to install Python in our computer. We are going to start also Visual Studio and we are going to run our first Flask application. The first thing that we have to do is to go to Python and download Python. You have to click here in this button. I have already downloaded. Then basically you have to go to your download folder and then double click here. The crucial part in the installation process is that you select this add Python X to path, because basically this guarantees that when we call Python from the command line, we can execute that command. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to install it. Therefore, that is very important. Okay, we have finished the installation process and now we have to close here. And to verify that we have installed Python properly, we have to go to the command line. You have to type com prompt. And then here, basically in the command line, you basically have to type Python -- version, and it will appear the version of Python that you are using. In this case, Python 3.11.1. You also can type Python, and then you will have these three arrows representing that Python is already installed. And in case that you write this Python and the computer doesn't recognize the code, basically what you have to go, there are different options, but the easiest one is basically go to the programs, to the command, the control panel, go to programs, find in here Python. Okay, programs, and find here Python, and basically you have to click here and install and repeat the entire process. You also have other possibilities, but this is the easiest one. The other possibility is to create an environmental variable, but that is the easiest one. In case that you arrive to the command line and you cannot type Python and the computer doesn't recognize this command, just let me know and I will help you to fix this problem, okay? The next thing that we have to do is basically to install an editor, and in our case we are going to use Visual Studio, and you have to download the Windows version or the Mac, depending on the operating system that you have. And in my case, I have already downloaded this, and you have it here. I accept. You click next. This is the folder in which you are going to install this. I'm going to create a desktop, an icon in my desktop, and then install. Okay, we have finished to install Python, Visual Studio, and then we click finish, and we launch our Visual Studio. I'm going to close here. Basically, if you go now to the extensions, I go like to ask you to install different extensions. In this case, we are going to use Python extension, because Python this will help us to improve our typing. And basically you have to go here and install it. I have already installed this in my computer, and then it recognized that I have already installed this. Okay, this concludes our installations in Visual Studio, and now we are going to develop our first app. The first thing that we have to do is basically we have to go to our folder system, and I have here basically this is the folder that I create for the entire course. Is Green Digitalization and App Development, and I have created a folder that is code, and here I'm going to create a folder that is chapter 1. Okay, then you create this folder, and now you go to Visual Studio, go File, Open Folder, and you have to open the folder that you have already created. That is, in my case, this is in courses, code, and I go to chapter 1, and I select that folder. It's going to ask me if I trust the kind of the creators, and I tell yes. And basically now we have chapter 1. The first thing that we need to do to create our application is to create a virtual environment. A virtual environment is going to be a kind of a toolbox in which we are going to store all the tools that we need to execute the code. Then basically you have to go to terminal, new terminal, and here basically what you need to do is to create a virtual environment. And to do that is very simple. Is you have to type Python -m virtual environment. And basically what we are doing now is to create a virtual environment. Is basically if you go to the folder chapter 1, you see that here you are creating a virtual environment, this folder. Okay, this is already finished. And now basically what you have to do is to activate the virtual environment, because this is like open, activated is like open the toolbox. And then basically you have to type by virtual environment scripts virtual environment. I make a mistake in the second line of code. Is not that, it's virtual environment activate. I'm sorry. Basically when you type this, basically what I have done is to type this virtual environment activate, and then it basically appears this parenthesis here. This means that the virtual environment is already activated. And now basically what we have to do is to install the tools that we are going to use to develop our first application. In particular, we have to type pip install Flask. Basically now what we are doing is to add into this toolbox all the tools that we are going to use to run our first application. Okay, this is done, clear. And now basically what we have to do is, if you want to check which tools have you added to your toolbox, you can type pip freeze arrow requirements txt, and then basically you have created you can see here that you have created this. You can again go to the folder of your course, you open this, and basically this is the tools that we have added to this toolbox. It's Flask and Jinja and all other tools. When we add more functionalities to our app, this kind of toolbox will increase the size. Okay, now we are going to create our first application, and to do that we go to File, New File, and we create a file that is called application.py. We create this file, and now here what we are going to do is basically to create the application. The first thing that we have to do is to tell the application which tools we are going to use. Then from Flask, import Flask. The next line, what we are going to do is to define the application equal Flask name. In the next line, what we are going to do is to create the routes. When we open the server, we need to create the routes to tell the server where are our application, and then it's basically we need to type this. This is one route, and the other for the same, given that in the home routes sometimes instead of using the bar you use also this to refer to the home page. And now basically we have to define the function that we are going to execute when we are in the route, in the home route, that is called home. And basically what we are going to to do is return, and we are going to return home page. Or home, basically. And finally, the thing that we need to do is to execute our application, and to do that is very simple. To main, we need to application run debug equal true. Okay, now we save it, Control S to save it, and now we go to our command line here, and with the virtual environment activities we have to type application.py. Then it's Python. I make a mistake. It's not a problem. It's sometimes these things happen and happen to you all the time. And it's nice that I make mistakes also in such a way that you can learn. It's basically we have to type Python because this is the command line, and then we have to call offline or file. Then basically we are using Python to open this file that we have already created. And then when you do that, basically it's going to appear here the server. If you click this, here you have home. This is basically the thing that we have written. If you type here also home, it will appear exactly the same information. If we go to our first application and we type, for example, home or welcome home, and we save it, and we refresh the web page, it will appear this thing. Okay? Then basically this concludes basically the first lecture, in which basically we have installed Python, we have installed Visual Studio, and we have developed our first application.